So hi everybody, welcome to our Governance Made Easy webinar titled How to Break into the Boardroom. This is part 2. We had part 1 last week, and if you didn't attend last week's session, then don't worry, you can watch the recording on a link that I shall just post in the chat just now. And whilst you're on that particular page, you might want to check out our other past Governance Made Easy webinars. They're full of great insights and advice from the community of governance experts that we have with us. Today, we have a continuing discussion with our special guest, Lisa Cook, who is Managing Director of Get On Board Australia, and Stephen Bowman of Conscious Governance. My name's Sean McDonald, and I will be your moderator for the next 45 odd minutes. So firstly, thanks for attending today. We really appreciate the effort you've made to be here for our live event. And during the session, if you have any questions, please use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen or pop it in the chat. We'll be answering these as we go, and we'll try to get through as many of these questions as we have time for. And finally, if you stay through till the end, which we hope you will do, and as is customary for our webinars, we have a special treat. By answering our 1-minute survey at the end of the webinar, you'll go into the draw to win our beautiful gift hamper worth over $400. Now, for those who are not too familiar with BoardPro, we are a board software provider, sometimes called a board portal, and we serve around 25,000 users around the world in about 19 different countries. And we enable organizations to prepare for and run their board meetings more effectively with, you guessed it, clever software, with less time, and we deliver more impact and value for the organization. And as much as we are a software provider, part of our wider mission is to make the fundamentals of governance free and easy to implement for all organizations, especially those with resource constraints. So whilst we had introductions last week, Lisa, for those that are new joining us today, would you like to kick off and just introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Thanks, Sean. Kia ora and g'day to everyone here today, especially those joining in for part 2 who were also in part 1. My name is Lisa Cook, Managing Director of Get On Board Australia, and really Get On Board Australia exists to support aspiring and emerging board members to get on board and thrive in the boardroom.
Fantastic. And over to you, Stephen.
Hi everyone, Steve Bowman here. I've been working in the governance space ever since I was a wee lad, and have worked on many boards as chair, as director, been the CEO of some very, very large organisations, both here and in the US of A. And for the last 20 odd years have been advising boards on strategy, governance, risk, leadership, and other really good nerdy governance stuff.
Thank you, sir. Always a pleasure to have you with us. Lisa, over to you.
Thanks, Sean. Okay, today what we're going to go through here is a snapshot. It's really a continuation of last week's webinar, which I'll touch on what we covered in the next slide. But today we're going to be working on really now activating all of the work that we did from that first webinar, and firstly visiting our networking strategy. And before you switch off and say, I hate networking, I don't enjoy it, it's not going to help me, stay tuned, please. We have a conversation around that, how you can use networking to really help you to achieve your board goals, but really we'll dive into what networking is and how you can use it to really accomplish those board ambitions that you have. Then we're going to be talking about how you can identify and create board opportunities that come to you, because we can't be out there all the time searching for opportunities and responding to anything that we come across. So there are ways that we can make this more efficient and more effective in your board search strategy. Then lastly, we'll touch on the due diligence practices, really around making sure that you end up on the right board at the right time, and also for the right reasons as well. So to recap what we did in last week's webinar, which is really important that we lay that groundwork for the work that we do that we're going to cover today. And that was around defining your destination. So I hope you've set a realistic and achievable board goal. And I talked about what realistic and achievable is in that first webinar. So please revisit that if you haven't yet, or really just need that refresher. Sean has shared the link in the chat, so be sure to grab that and keep that in your pocket for when we're finished today. Then we moved on to articulating your personal value proposition, or your unique value proposition that I call it, really around how do we make you attractive to your desired boards. And that's really important because that gives you the language and the message that you need to go out and share with people, especially when it comes to your network. So we'll get to that. Then we talked about how we translate all of that, your board goal and your unique value proposition, into a strong personal brand that really communicates both of those very easily, very quickly, particularly when you're not there to tell the story. And we talked about the brand assets that you need to develop as part of your board search strategy. One of those is around a compelling board resume. And I did touch on what that is in that first webinar. So go back and watch that for a refresher, or just to watch it if you've missed that first one. So our first stage now, after we've set that important groundwork, is around an aligned networking strategy. So aligned here really is around making sure that the work you do with your networking is for the purpose of achieving your board goals. So I have a question for everyone watching today, playing along at home. Who enjoys networking? Just let us know in the chat. Yes, no, me, not me, whatever you want to share. Who enjoys that? Who likes meeting new people? I'm really interested to know. And while you answer that, fantastic, Deborah, well done. I want to talk about really what is networking. Networking, in my definition, is what's here at the bottom. It's creating a group of acquaintances and associates and keeping it active through regular communication for mutual benefit. Networking is based on the question, how can I help? Not what can I get? So networking isn't just about meeting new people face to face. And I'm so glad to see that so many of you in the chat really enjoy meeting new people. That's fantastic. New people is one of the facets of networking. It's not the whole picture, because to me, networking also involves leveraging your existing network. So the people you already know, and that can also include people in your family, people who are friends, colleagues at work, and other people that you've already met and you already have established a relationship with, really no matter how loose it might be to me. Steve, do you have thoughts on?
Yeah, look, the key thing with networking, I found, the trick to networking, I learnt this many years ago from a specialist great friend of mine, Robin Henderson, and that is act as the host always. So whenever you go to a networking event, introduce people to other people. You know, don't put yourself out there, because people are aware of that. But if you act as if you were the host in everything, then you'll never be at a loss of what to say, because then you'll be introducing people, you'll be asking them about themselves, you'll be making sure that they know other people that maybe they hadn't met before. So all of a sudden you become, you have a role to play rather than just sitting around. The same thing with if you go to conferences, for example, you know, introduce people to each other, even if they don't know each other, because that is one of the secret sources for how to actually make networking really interesting and really useful. So I suppose the phrase I like the most, Lisa, is be interested, not interesting.
Yes, that's a great mindset to take in as well. So networking doesn't just happen at events. Sean, sorry, we've just jumped forward a bit too quickly. Networking doesn't just happen at events. It can happen offline. It can happen things through LinkedIn, making mutual connections, connecting people through email. Steve, you sent me a wonderful example of networking through email, which we could call it, because of someone who was searching for board opportunities, and how there was a thread connecting a bunch of people together, trying to help this one person achieve their board goals. So it happens in multiple spaces and places, and isn't just about going to an event and meeting new people. Importantly, one is around nurturing your existing network. So once you meet these people and you have them in your sort of sphere, what do you do with them? How do you stay in touch with them so you can help them and so they can help you eventually when the time is right? It's not a one-off activity. It's an ongoing process. Having great people in your network is hugely valuable once you're on a board as well. So this is not just something you do when you're looking for opportunities. It's an ongoing activity that you do for your board career. Sean, let's jump forward. Thank you. So continuing on with our aligned networking strategy, I talked about leveraging your existing network, and really you're asking the question of yourself, well, who in my existing network is someone I need to be actively engaging with? How do I do that and when do I do that? And really you'll find answers to those questions sort of enshrined in your board ambitions and really what you're trying to achieve, and also how you're trying to help them. So who will become very obvious once you start doing some research into those kind of boards that you're looking to get onto, and who are the people that you need to be connected with, and how can you backtrack, and LinkedIn is perfect for this. How can you backtrack and ask for introductions to the people that you need to know to hopefully further your board ambitions?
Lisa, can I just add something to that, if I may?
Please.
There's nothing more off-putting than someone who is feeling desperate and is sending emails out to people saying, hey, can you help me get a job in X, Y, and Z?
Mm-hmm.
What is much more effective is if you're willing to tap into the energy of being a contribution to the person that you're emailing. So here's an article you might find of interest, or so you keep the connection going, not because you expect anything, but because you can. And that is such a difference than and I get a number of things from people who say, hey, look, I'm in the job market. If you hear of anything, then let me know. Okay. Not quite sure what to do with that.
Yeah.
But if you're willing to be a contribution, you're willing to actually create a connection without any expectation of anything, that is very different than expecting an outcome from it.
Yeah.
Lisa?
Absolutely. And I'll get into those. I have an asking for help formula that I'll run through because I think it's a better way than just the blanket, can you think of me if you hear of something? Well, no, I've already forgotten you kind of thing because you haven't given me anything to work from. So I'll cover that because it's really helpful for you to know, those who are watching. So second here is around expanding your network. And again, you're going to look to your board goals and where you're at right now, where you have to get to around who are you targeting? How will you connect with them, whether it's through an introduction or some other way? If you're ready to just cold call, reach out to people, that's okay as well. I find a lot of people are very generous and are interested to help if you go about it the right way. So that's around really offering what can you do to help them, or how can you support them in whatever their goals are or whatever their ambitions are. And then when will you connect with them? What makes sense? How does it all fit in with your board search strategy and the activities that you're doing with that, and this other person as well, your best judgment around when is a better time to contact them or not. And then once we have these people in our atmosphere, we're going to nurture them. So we'll take it beyond this transactional. And as Steve was saying, it involves adding value to this person. So how can you do that? Your best judgment call based on your research into this person, maybe looking at their LinkedIn profile, maybe Googling them. How can you meaningfully stay in touch? And how do you ask for help when the time is right? So one strategy that I have around staying in touch that I read about a long time ago, and I think it's a great idea, is around maintaining your own database of your network. And this could be just in a spreadsheet. That's super easy. And what you do is you send out a quarterly email to these people in your network. You offer value. You give them an update on what you're up to, what you're doing maybe in your professional job. You share something of interest, of value to these people. You offer to help them in any way and how they can take advantage of that invitation. But then you can also ask for help at the end of that. So after you've offered all this value and offered to help, you can ask for help from those people in your network. So how do I do that? I talked about an asking for help formula, which is a lot nicer way and a lot more effective for you to do the whole, can you keep me in mind if you hear of any opportunities? So when you're reaching out to someone, the first thing you want to say is, I have the ambition of getting on a board. This is the type of board, or these are the types of boards I'm really interested in. Note them out. Even if you use examples of organizations to make your message a little bit more concrete in the reader's mind. Why that board, or why those boards? So talk about why you have the ambition of joining those types of boards. And it needs to go beyond because I want to be on a board and tell people I'm on a board and put that on my CV. That's all great. These are fantastic byproducts that we all enjoy and get value from, but it's not the solely reason why you want to be exploring boards as an opportunity. Then you want to talk about why you. So why are you of value to these kind of organizations or these kinds of boards? Then you can talk about the help that you want from this person. You can say, I see that you're connected to Steve. How can I, is it possible that you can do an introduction on my behalf to Steve? I'd really like to talk to him about his work in X, Y, and Z, or his connections with A, B, and C, or whatever it is that you might be talking about. Another thing is that you might want to share that the board CV that you've put together with that person, with an open invitation to just say, look, I've attached my board CV. Please feel free to forward this on to anyone that you think that it's relevant. You don't have to come back to me and ask for permission for that. Just feel free to share that as you wish. Or just keep it on file. If you come across any opportunities in these areas, keep it on hand so that you have it there ready when the time is right. I appreciate that. Thank you. And how can I, I'm always willing to help you. How can I help you? Or here's a way that I thought I might be able to help you. So that's kind of an asking for help formula. Talk about your goal, your board goal, why you, and then do the ask. So that's much more effective than, hey, Steve, I'm really wanting to branch out and get onto boards. Can you just keep me in mind if you hear about any opportunities? We can see that there's a big difference in what the outcome might be. So give that a try. That's our active networking outreach activity. That's a really important part of your board search strategy. And it's going to take time. So be patient and really work at nurturing those relationships that you establish, because it will return value over time, especially if you look to give more than you get from it. So how can we create board opportunities where we're not always out there having to search for advertisements or be constantly reaching out and networking with people, or any sort of outward activity all the time? We've already done so much work around narrowing our focus. Now, what can we do to set up some systems to make these opportunities sort of come to us in a way that requires less involvement on our behalf? So we have LinkedIn. LinkedIn is becoming great for boards to advertise their board opportunities. So this is in the jobs section of LinkedIn. And when you search for something, board roles, for example, you can then set up an alert. And an alert is LinkedIn's automated emails that come to you whenever jobs that match that criteria get listed on LinkedIn. So set up alerts and use that as a way for you to receive a daily or a weekly digest. I think you get the option to choose those, of opportunities that fit with what you're looking for. And that's a really easy way to do that. Another way is around using board registers. And Steve, I don't know if you remember, a handful of years ago, these used to be all the rage. Really, there were a lot of them, and there were a lot of sort of really bespoke focus areas. The jury's still out on how much these are used, but they're still worthwhile. I got a board opportunity through a board register. Pardon me, Steve, we were talking earlier about sport boards. That's how I got onto my sport boards. So Board registers can be really helpful. A lot of state and territory governments use these still. So, pardon me, if you're interested in exploring those sort of board opportunities, then it may be worthwhile to put your profile on those sort of board registers and even get set up for alerts when government entities advertise actively for board members for their boards. So that's one way of doing that. Using board search firms. So we are very familiar with recruiters who recruit for regular professional jobs and things like that. Some of these high-level executive search firms also get into board searching and board placement. So there's a way that you can use board search firms to either share your resume. I know that some of them have that set up where you can just lodge your board CV in their system, and then it can get searched against any opportunities that they're recruiting for actively. Or you can choose to start a relationship with an actual recruiter. Now, you have to be really on your game if you're going to start reaching out to and working with board recruiters. They're not going to suffer fools lightly. So you need to really have this nailed down. What is your board goal? Why those boards? And what you have to offer them and what value you're going to bring those boards. And you need to have a really concise, well-messaged CV that delivers that message around your personal brand, around your unique value proposition, that will sell you to these recruiters first and then onto the boards that you're looking for. Steve, what's been your experience with board recruiters?
Yeah, look, there's many good board recruiters out there, and they are looking for good directors, not necessarily those with huge amounts of experience. So many boards, the biggest problem boards face at the moment is finding board directors. So it's a great market for you to be in, but you have to make it easy for them to know who you are. So with board recruiters, for example, I know many board recruiters, and one of the things that seems to help a lot is if you have a particular insight about what your expertise or lived experience might be, or whatever it could be, then start collecting all the articles and the research and the newspaper stories that are relevant to that, and once a month or once every 2 months, send an email to that board recruiter with an update on some information that they might find useful for their library. Because you'll have a particular focus on something because that's your interest. And if you're showing how that is having an actual impact in boards around the world, and there'll always be articles on things that are relevant, your job is to collect them, set up a library and share it, because that by itself makes you interesting.
Absolutely. Definitely. Great pointers. So whichever of these top three points here that you use, there's a critical part of that aspect of this that I've already touched on around your CV, but this is around optimizing your profile. So something like a board register, you'll go through a process of setting up your profile on there. They may or may not ask you to also attach your board CV, but they normally have a bunch of text boxes with preset questions that they want you to answer. So you really want to be careful and conscious around what is the information that you're putting in here and how does that measure up against the boards that you're looking for, because these are the things that they'll use to search for candidates that match the profile that they're seeking. So be really careful about the information you put in there. And the same with LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a great tool for you to use as an extension to your board resume. So it's where you can tell a longer, deeper story about yourself so that you don't have to have a 6-page CV that no one's going to read. This board CV is really sort of the highlight reel of everything. You can put the link to your LinkedIn profile there and people can go there if they want to know more about you. But if people are actively recruiting board members or seeking out potential board candidates using LinkedIn, you want to make sure that your profile has the information that those boards would be searching for. So think about that as well. Those three, you need to optimize your profile and keep it up to date as well. If you're still stuck on how to approach your CV, your board CV, how do you write one? I've got 3 options. I have a bunch of articles on my website, getonboardaustralia.com.au, that talks all about your board resume. I have a very low cost course called 5 Steps to Build Your Board Resume. So that's really accessible for you. But I also write people's board resumes as well, which is a more high value service that I offer as well. So if you're interested in that, you can also follow up with me, ask to be connected to me in the post webinar survey, and we can get in touch and talk about that.
Lisa, I literally just did a Google search on using board registers.
Yep.
And your name comes up first off. And in there, I clicked on that one as I was listening to you. And in there's a wonderful list of the various different types of board registers that are available. So this information is available out there to everyone. And if you're not sure what board registers are, do a bit of research on them, because there is a whole stack of them, both state, federal, territory, but also industry-specific board registers. Even, there's women on boards and a whole lot of other types of registers out there, but they're well worthwhile for you to start fine-tuning how you get your message across.
Absolutely. Thanks for that, Steve. So there's some other options here as well. Not quite ready to put on the screen because the sort of jury's out, but know that they're out there. I want you to be aware of what the options are. There's a lot of organizations, or a not insignificant amount of organizations, that offer a paid subscription service to email you a list of board opportunities. Now, really use your professional judgment whether that's worth the money you're spending on them. It doesn't guarantee you jump the queue, or it doesn't guarantee you an interview. It's just someone collating a bunch of opportunities for boards and then emailing that digest to you. So do some research if that's of interest to you, if you find the value in that worthwhile, so you don't have to go searching. I'm not quite sure how granular they would get, whether you can talk about the types of boards you're interested in and they only send you those, or you just get everything that they've found. The other one is that I've heard about as well, is that some recruiters will ask you to pay them for work done with you around pursuing your board goals, and whether that's around paying recruiters for preferential treatment. I guess they would give that to you if you're a paying client. I would certainly expect that, but they may also ask you to pay for them to do like a review of your board CV and your LinkedIn profile and things like that. Is that so bad? Again, use your professional judgment on that. It's a red flag. It's a conflict of interest if they're playing both sides like that. But those are other things that are out there that you may come across. So approach these with a bit of caution. Next slide, please, Sean. Thank you. Okay, so we're zooming through your board search strategy process, and now we're at the point where we need to undertake some due diligence or prepare ourselves for the boardroom is the macro thing, but we're going to focus on some due diligence. And this may happen if you come across a board advertisement. Say you're on LinkedIn, you found a board advertisement. This is of interest to me. It fits the types of boards I want. The profile looks like it matches my expertise and skill set. So this is something I want to explore further. Before you just jump in and put in your application, you probably want to do some research. Would that be right, Steve?
Oh, the research is what's going to get you noticed by them, and the research is more than just reading stuff. So Lisa, you go for it. This is the key to it.
Yeah. So you want to be really looking into these organizations. You want to be looking into the board members. You want to be finding out as much about this organization and the board members as you can. And this is going to be twofold. One is that you're understanding whether this organization is something you want to get involved in. Are these the people I want to sit around a board table with and spend a not insignificant amount of time with throughout the year? So you want to look at it from that perspective. Is it financially sound? Does it look like they've got goals that I can help them progress and achieve? Are they heading in the direction where I can really get behind that? And secondly, you want to find this information that's going to help you prepare a standout application. And whether that's just in a cover letter and a resume, what you're going to see, and Steve, you mentioned this in the last webinar, it's around understanding the language that they're using in this organization so that you can incorporate that into your application so that they're already aware and conscious and looking for these kind of words and certain language and what they talk about and focus on. So you can incorporate that language, speak their language, and your application is going to resonate a whole lot more. So that's why you want to do some due diligence into that.
Just a little hint on this one too.
Yep.
Often people have said, should I join a non-profit board before I go for a corporate board and so on and so forth? And in the end, it doesn't really matter as long as you get on a board at some stage that is one that you can add value to, but also is a great board to learn from as well. So every one of us listening to this is either in a sector or in a profession or who has lived experiences for which there is multiple non-profits set up to service or represent. Why would you not start with that? Because, for example, if you are an accountant, then why wouldn't you get onto one of the accounting bodies, for example, to get to know a little bit more about how boards actually work? If you are a carer, why wouldn't you get onto a board that represents carers as someone with the lived experience? Because that immediately gives you a toe in. And also, if you choose them carefully and they're actually really good boards, you'll learn more in 12 months than any amount of reading will tell you. So a great hint is to look at what is the sector, what is the profession, what is the lived experience that you've got, because I guarantee there'll be a non-profit organisation out there that actually represents or is part of that. And they're always looking for good people, always.
Absolutely. And those kind of boards are what I refer to as the low-hanging fruit. If you're looking to start your board career, where is the next logical place you could go? And things like that are the most logical usually. So they're fantastic places to start your board career, to really understand what boards are about. Because if you get on those and you don't like that, chances are you don't want to progress to bigger boards where it just gets more complex, more political, and just not, if it's not your vibe. So have the lower risk option to really understand what boards are all about.
I still remember, Lisa, my very first chairing position that I got. I went onto the board of our local kindergarten.
Wow.
And it was one of my first board positions, many years. What's my daughter's 37 years old now, so that was a long time ago. And the one meeting that I didn't go to was the one meeting where I was elected chair. But what that enabled me to do is to actually learn what it meant to be a chair and to actually create the foundation for going forward. So you just never know where they come from. It could be something very, very local, like the kindergarten, or it could be a national peak body, or it could be an actual corporate that is looking for someone like you who's got the experiences, the background, the age, the demographics, that just the person they're looking for. But they don't know unless you let them know.
Absolutely. So true. Thank you for those. I just wanted to touch on Vivian's question here around provide a few board registration links or organizations. Vivian, if you ask to be contacted by me in the post-webinar survey, I'm going to send out a resource that I'll mention shortly that will contain some of these links, but certainly the link to the article that Steve mentioned that's on the website. So with our due diligence, this doesn't stop once you explore the organization and then decide to put your application in. If you progress through to the interview process and then further through the process, that board will give you information along the way that's going to help you further understand more about that organization. And you need to read through that, or however they present that to you, really actively engage with that information to come to the decision whether you want to get involved with an organization like this. So it doesn't stop the due diligence. And importantly for the other board members as well, look into them, make sure they're people you want to spend some time with. The other part of due diligence is evaluating yourself, right? This is two ways here. Do you have the time to commit to this? If they're saying our board meets once a month and you're like, oh, that's too much, I'd really prefer a board that meets every other month or once a quarter or something like that, great flag to tell you maybe this isn't the opportunity for me. Or maybe you can reevaluate where your time is right now, change some things around and push more energy and time towards your board goals.
Sorry,
Yes.
Lisa, sorry for interrupting. This is pure practical experience, a bit of research behind it as well. But if you're looking at a board position, have a look to see how long the board meetings are, and then factor in between 3 and 4 times that amount of time prior to the board meeting and 3 or 4 times the amount of that length of that board meeting after the board meeting. So that gives you an idea of the time commitment that you should be willing to allocate towards pre-board meeting, at the board meeting, post-board meeting. It doesn't just mean a board meeting.
Yeah, absolutely, Steve. And that's such a great rule of thumb to factor in as well. And it's true. You know it, I know it from experience. That's how much time is required. You also want to be checking in about your care factor. Are you interested in what this organization is doing, where they're going? If it is a not-for-profit or some sort of organization like that, chances are they're sharing their strategy on their website and really what their goals and ambitions are. Look into that. Is it something you can get behind? Is it something you care about and are interested in? Think about potential conflicts of interest that you might have. What do you do in your life, in your job that may bang up against this organization that could bring a potential conflict of interest? Conflicts are everywhere. They're not bad. It's how they're managed that matters. So that's all I'm going to say on that, because I know that Steve, I think you've done a whole webinar about conflicts of interest. So if that's of interest to you, go check out that recording. You also want to think about your risk exposure. So what am I exposed to from this? Of course, if the proverbial really hits the fan and you've been deficient in your director's duties, you're going to suffer the consequences for that. That's just a fact of life. We all go into it knowing that, but are there extra risks that you're not keen to take on? Some organizations might ask for their directors to provide guarantees or something like that. Really be careful about those sort of things as well. And also, can you maintain your independence on this board in this organization? So that's around your due diligence. We harp on that. We've sat on that one for quite a minute here today. It is that important that you end up in the right place at the right time as well. So that's why we need to do our due diligence of the organization, of the board members, and of ourselves as well for those opportunities. So secondly, now we've progressed to the board interview. We need to prepare for the board interview. Steve, the question I'm often asked is, what are they going to ask me in a board interview?
How can you contribute to us is what they're after. If they're really good, they will have done their due diligence on you and they want to know how you would deal with difficult situations. How would you deal with this? And it could be a real life scenario. They might come up with something. That's if they're good at it. Mostly with a lot of board interviews is, be aware of the board interviews where they're just checking that you're breathing. Yeah. Because what you want to be able to do is you want to join a board that is actually inquisitive. You want to join a board that asks you really good questions. And for you to be able to be prepared for that, you need to have an understanding of how that board works. So I'd certainly, as part of the due diligence, be asking for a set of their board policies, a set of their board charters, code of conduct, that sort of thing. Typically, what would you give out to a new director? Can you provide me the stuff that is not commercial in confidence? Because I'd really like to see where you're at that I can add value to. So something along those lines. But yeah, the key questions that I've seen really good boards ask is, how would you deal with a difficult situation like this? And they might give you a bit of a scenario. It could be a made up one or it could have been a real one. Typically, a good understanding of what interest is, the register of interests and conflicts of interests, and how boards can manage those and how you can manage those as a personal thing. How you deal with difficult behaviour would be a great question I'd want to be asking a new director coming in. Not that we have any, of course, but if we were to, what would that look like? So it's those sorts of questions that are real life scenarios. The key thing that any good board is looking for is a director who is curious, a director who asks great questions. You know, the purpose of a question is to unlock wisdom. So if you're going in and you're talking to and you're getting a board interview, you should be focusing on, look, here, my experience and all this stuff is I'm not going to be thrusting this down people's throats. I'm going to be asking questions that will help unlock what we all need to be discussing. Along those lines would be a very powerful way to approach a board interview.
Yeah, absolutely. And also you asking great questions of them during the interview, because vetting is two ways in these situations, demonstrates that message you would be telling them as well. Now, an anonymous attendee's asked in the questions, some boards ask about your networks. How should we handle this request? Steve, would you like to tackle that one first?
Sure. I mean, one of the things that that a board should be looking for is, you know, what is this stakeholder engagement that this director brings with them? I think it's a great question to be asked. And just say, look, my networks, I've got a very strong network in this profession or this community, whatever it might be. And in fact, some boards are looking for people that are, that's one of their key skills matrix criteria, is the networks this person has. So talk about it, tell them about the sort of networks that you've got. You'd better have them. So go back to the first part of what Lisa was saying, is start to build your networks up, because people want you to be able to leverage your networks, not for money, not for contacts, but for knowledge, for insight, to get access to things that they couldn't get otherwise as a board.
Yeah, absolutely. Be generous with sharing your assets and value, and part of that is your network. Conscious of time, let's keep rolling through. Third thing you want to be doing, once you're on the board, congratulations. Now you need to get properly on board and integrate with your new board. What are you going to come across first? Most likely an induction program. Now, Steve, to me, is my guru on induction programs. What do you have to add about induction programs, Steve, that people need to be aware of today?
Over 90% of induction programs are pretty useless. It's a pretty much, here's all of our board papers and then dump and run. So what you need to do joining a new board is you have to insist on a good induction program. And again, we've run webinars. Sean can possibly put a link up to that as well too, about what to look for in there we go, he's already done it. What to look for and the sorts of questions you should be asking. If you ask these questions as part of your onboarding, you are already setting yourself up as a high performance director, whether or not you have experience. So these tools are absolutely invaluable for them. So do a bit of research on what to expect from an induction program, and if they're not providing it, ask for it. And if they're still not giving it, then offer to help set it up for the next level of director coming on.
Yeah, good advice. Fantastic. Check out those resources, way more about that, so you know what to ask for. Fourthly, we need to stay developed. We need to stay sharp. We need to sharpen the axe, which I think came from 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Is that right? I can't remember. Anyway, we're going to keep the saw sharp. What do? Personal and professional development. Boards are not just about governance. There's so much about the interpersonal people stuff that we do need to maintain both an eye on our personal and professional development. And there's both formal and informal ways to do this, and both are valuable in their own ways. Formal, I'm going to spruik myself. There's Boardroom Bootcamp, the course I have. There's others out there as well. Find the one that best meets your needs. Use your professional judgment. Same with seminars, in-person, online, paid things. Really, anything that's paid, I see, has a structure so that you're learning the stuff that you don't know. That's really what you want to get to with those. The informal, it's articles, it's podcast, it's the Board Shorts podcast and others. It's Conscious Governance TV that Steve's put together some fantastic resources there. Articles, thought leaders, follow them on LinkedIn, follow them wherever you can find them. But, follow good ones. Steve's one of those and others as well. So that's how we prepare. Your homework following this. Begin planning your networking strategy based on your board goals. That's how we don't go to the opening of every single envelope in town. If you ask to be contacted by me in that post-webinar survey, I'm going to send you a free resource. It's a workbook all about networking for board success. I encourage you to ask for that. Select the methods to create the board opportunities that come to you. Set some actions, set some deadlines so you actually get the work done. And then start gathering some resources to help you evaluate and prepare for board opportunities that come your way. Take action at the time when it makes sense. Steve went through them all. Check that out. Revisit that section that we talked through about those ones as well. That's how you get yourself on a board. That's how you break into the boardroom. But what next? If you want some more help, Sean has kindly offered to allow me to give myself a little bit of advertisement around some programs that I have available to help you get on board. So firstly, we have a waitlist for Springboard, which is a new program that I'm putting together. It's coming out. You can find some more information just on the screen there because it is that new. There's nothing publicly available apart from this right now that I'm talking about. If you request in that post-webinar survey to be contacted by me, I'll offer to keep you on that wait list so you know when it comes out. But I do have a course in the meantime. It's called Break Into the Boardroom. It's a self-paced online course. It gives you also access to 5 steps to build your board resume and comes with a coaching session with me to help you achieve your board goals. Again, ask to be contacted by me in that post-webinar survey, and we can have a chat about those and I can share some more information with you. Thank you, and I wish you all the best in your board search strategy.
Good luck, everyone.
Thanks, Lisa. Thanks, Stephen. Please feel free to reach out to either Lisa or Stephen on LinkedIn with the address details here. I'm sure they'll look forward to your contact. There is a survey at the end, which we talked about right at the beginning. If you'd like to complete that, that will enable us to provide better value, better information and content for other webinars. Thanks again, Lisa and Stephen. Really appreciate the conversation today. Look forward to having you all at our next webinar, everybody. Thanks again.